Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us. It's my pleasure to welcome two guests today, Jonathan Butts, Director of Healthcare Business Development at NextThink, and Jeremy Bernstein, Consulting Chief Technology Officer at Edge Solutions and Consulting. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have you both. Well, we want to talk today about digital experience management. So first of all, can someone define for me how they frame digital experience management, what it is, and why it's important to healthcare?
So this is a great way to begin the conversation, because digital experience is a relatively new category of solution that's not top of mind in healthcare or even in other industries. What we're doing is combining two vital pieces of information to understand the quality of the experience that people have consuming applications on their primary devices and points of care terminals. And we combine two really important elements of information. One is an analytical assessment of the behavior of applications and the endpoints on which they run, and the operating environments in which they run if they come from a Citrix or a VDI environment, for example. But that's only half the picture. That helps us understand how the applications and the operating environments are doing. The other half of the picture is gaining the sentiment of the users who are consuming the applications and understanding how they feel about the quality of those experiences. And when we put those two things together, we get a solid picture of the quality of people's digital experience that allows us to baseline, trend, make meaningful improvements, and measure the impact of those changes.
Jeremy?
Yeah, and with that, I think I can segue off of that, is that we kind of look at it, the overall experience of not just our employees, but our customers too. And in healthcare, our patients are our most important, the reason we're here, right? And when you have employees that are dealing with patients, providers of many different levels that may not be consuming resources in a very wonderful manner, we'll paint the picture very lightly. That's going to affect their mood. That's going to affect the way that they deal with people. If you think about very simple things that impact you in your life, you're driving a car, someone cuts you off, you're upset, you're impacted for the rest of that moment and maybe beyond. And when you're using IT resources, which over the last 20 years, we've seen this complete revolution of digital platforms coming in the healthcare arena, especially on the provider side, that was new. When you can't use those tools, which is really what we're trying to provide for all of our caregivers, or better tools to provide better outcomes, and those tools are frustrating, that's going to impact the way that they deal with our patients. That's going to impact the way that the patients feel about this overall system and their experience. So improving the experience that our providers and that our folks that are consuming those resources from IT vastly improves the outcomes for the way that the patient feels that they've been handled and dealt with by the providers at our system. And that's really provider centric. I mean, this translates outside of just health systems. I mean, there's many different healthcare arenas we can talk about.
Yeah. Let me ask you, gentlemen, we hear two things that are often said, and somewhere in my mind, they clash. One is healthcare is completely unique. It's different from every other industry, and it's certainly different from other industries in which people are consuming goods and services. On the other hand, we hear, well, healthcare isn't that unique. There are a lot of commonalities with other industries. And as we've all experienced now, the whole world has experienced 2 years of a global pandemic. And many are saying it's increased the consumer awareness, if not empowerment. Mm-hmm. So looking at those two kind of potentially opposing ideas, is healthcare that different from other industries, or are there enough commonalities that we can really learn from what other industries have done in terms of thinking about the digital experience?
I think that Jeremy probably has a lot to say about this, but I will say, the fundamental difference when we talk about the provider industry in particular, those actually delivering care, hospitals, health systems, and other clinical services, the difference is in the outcome. We're not interested in shipping more widgets or bringing new services and products to market. The outcome of the work we do in healthcare is the health and well-being of our communities at large. And that's a really important difference. It's vital infrastructure, unlike so many of the other businesses we could discuss. But the technologies and tools and frameworks necessary to successfully deliver those outcomes are not substantially different.
Yeah, and so I'll probably say something the same, but a little different, is that, well, let me maybe roll back a little bit. I think every industry, every vertical of business thinks they're unique when it comes to needs, right? Whether we're talking about the gaming industry, academics, healthcare, retail, the list goes on and on. And really, when you break it down, they are different in what they're providing, what the product is or what the service is, or who and how they're servicing something. There's going to be differences, and some may be subtle, some may be very, very different and can be stark when you compare two verticals. But when you break down the IT aspect of it, I think that consuming IT, the reason why we think it's so different is also the reason why we have problems consuming it. And so I'll kind of reverse that. Part of our problem is that we think we're so different because of the type of delivery that we're in business doing, delivery of care when you look at the system and provider standpoint, that means that IT is completely different. And I'm here to tell you that I think that our thought process on that is wrong, and it's been proven wrong. We typically these days bring people from outside the healthcare industry to work in healthcare IT to start changing that mindset, whether it's talking about consuming cloud products or how does a Silicon Valley startup do it versus how do we do it. Now, yeah, we've been doing business for a long time, and there's some things that are rooted in there that are harder to get out. Maybe the way we've been doing certain paper processes, or maybe the way that PACS systems came in really first from a digital imaging standpoint for delivery of electronic items to a provider. Rev cycle was in there probably even before that, but providers didn't see that as much, the digital aspect of it. So it's hard to kind of uproot some of that, some of those items and platforms and manufacturers that have been doing business in IT in those ways. But that doesn't mean our mindset has to stay rooted in that. We're different because we have these legacy vendors, these legacy providers. I think it's refreshing when you talk to people and say part of our problem is that we're not thinking more like doing business in IT the way that other industries are. And the more that we can continue to do that, the more we're going to enable doing digital transformations the way that people envision them versus just talking about them. There's a lot of talk, and the talk and trends tend to wane and wax and wane, and whether it's about digital transformation or about AI or the next trendy thing that we're wanting to talk about at HIMSS. But you kind of roll it all back to the beginning is that sure, we're different. Every industry is different in some fashion, but the way we consume IT, does it necessarily have to be that different? No. And from an experience perspective, to tie it back to kind of what we're talking here, we're looking outside of healthcare 100% of the time for how other industries are improving experience, and we're looking at how the customer is improving experience. And kind of back to what I originally said is getting your employees happy definitely helps that customer score and that satisfaction go up. But really, you have to look at internal and external factors. And when we're looking at places like Starbucks or Disney or the Four Seasons or whatever place that does an amazing experience with their customers, we're trying to employ some of that same right. sentiment, those same value systems into our ecosystem, which again may be a little harder because we've been kind of rooted in doing one thing the way we've been doing it. But you have to take steps and looking at the employee experience, looking at the digital tool sets, talking about tool sets we provide providers to provide care. We have tool sets where we can provide a better experience. We'd be silly not to look at them.
Yeah, I agree exactly, Jeremy. And I'll just say something to further support what you just said and to reinforce it. I think one of the challenges in healthcare is that healthcare leaders have been so rooted in their sense of uniqueness that they haven't looked outside enough. And now that's happening, which is a good thing.
And I would say, just to comment on that, and it's not their fault. It's not our fault. Yeah. A lot of times we're pigeonholed into thinking a certain way, and it's reinforced. If you look at just society in general, opinions tend to be reinforced by similar opinions, right? And so people even outside of IT and other C-suite offices may think the same. Healthcare business is different than other businesses, and then that can translate into IT, or maybe IT's always thought that way and that translates the other way, but it becomes reinforced. So to break that cycle is a difficult thing to do, but we're starting to see that, and that's a really exciting thing to see, to be a part of. and to watch progress, because we all understand we can't continue to do business the way we've been doing it without improving experiences, and experiences really start internally.
Exactly. Now, to go on to the next thicket of issues, healthcare involves a lot of different kinds of businesses. So my question is the idea of the digital experience relevant to all of them? How does this break down when we've got a lot of sectors and subsectors in healthcare, and they are different even among themselves. Jonathan, do you want to start?
Sure, and Mark, I think you and Jeremy have already alluded to some of these in our discussion so far, but where it's applicable across the entire healthcare ecosystem. When we're talking about the care delivery, the providers themselves, enabling clinicians is a critical role. And when we're talking about biopharma, it's about enabling faster research and ensuring that we have compliance for people handling sensitive data. And when we talk about managed care, we're talking about making sure that we're delivering the best customer service outcomes and that we're enabling more rapid development of new services. So everybody across the healthcare ecosystem can benefit from a superior digital experience.
Sure, and I'm a believer of really one thing that human beings really are our purpose. One of our main purposes outside of procreation is to become more efficient generation after generation. And it's very evident when you look at what IT's been doing over the last 30, 40 years, especially the last 20. You look back to the iPhone in the early 2000s, 2007-ish, we got that off the ground, everybody consumed it. It became really something that you couldn't be without. And now we're so fast, things are so efficient that when something doesn't even work in a split second, we're frustrated. So we want more efficiency, we want more. And so when you look at healthcare as a general umbrella and all the different subsets, whether it's payer side, provider side, biopharma, all the different supportive effort that it is to deliver healthcare to patients, experience matters across the board. If I'm calling and I'm a patient and I'm frustrated, I'm trying to get coverage and pre-authorization for a radiology scan or something to check me out for one reason or another, and I'm on the line with a payer and they're frustrated because their system doesn't work and they're communicating that to me, which, let's be honest, we've all been on the phone with customer support with something where they go, I'm so sorry, our system's down. And you're taking your time to call them, they're telling you their system's down, which makes their day rougher. You're now frustrated that their systems that you're not even a part of, you're just a kind of collateral, you're collaterally damaged by even calling them because you've now wasted your time trying to fix your own problem because they can't fix it and you're frustrated. Experience matters, right? So it matters across the board. If that patient's happy with their payer, and the payer's happy with their system internally, they're providing better experience to that patient on that aspect of healthcare delivery. When that same patient is now in the delivery system and dealing with providers and nurses and any level actually of provider, or dealing with a bill with the revenue cycle folks, and those people are able to tell them very quickly and not waste 10, 15, 20 minutes on the phone with them what they need to do to solve their problem, or can solve it for them. The experience goes so far. And I'll kind of end with one example, very recent example. This week, I had an air mattress that we had to sleep on. My wife and I, we were getting a new mattress and a new bed. The mattress, of course, was delayed one day from the bed. The air mattress, we woke up at 2 a.m. had a hole in it and was deflated. So not a comfortable stay. Maybe we need some healthcare because our back hurts at this point. I called their customer service number on Monday, spent less than 5 minutes on the phone. They ordered a replacement, told me I didn't need to do anything with the existing one. They didn't even need it returned. The next day it showed up at my door. That experience would make me buy or use or tell people about that company again and again and again. And I think that matters. And when you can put that into healthcare informatics, when you can put that into IT technology, the time savings you give people, the efficiency you give people, the good user experience, the comprehensive understanding of your health that they have, that's at their fingertips, it goes very far. So yes, it matters at every level in healthcare, and healthcare is a broad umbrella.
Yeah, exactly, Jeremy. And I have had countless conversations with people about living in this pandemic, we all have, but one that comes up over and over again is, why can't healthcare be like Amazon or J. Crew or anyone? I mean, it is obviously much, much more complex, but Amazon, you order a book or a shirt or a teapot, and it comes in 2 days. And yes, if there's something wrong with it, you just ship it back, and you get that level of experience has yet to come to healthcare in most cases. So it's something, even though obviously healthcare is far more complex than ordering a book online, we can look at those experiences and we can say consumers, people, are having these great consumer experiences, and at least we can try to emulate that in healthcare, even though it is complex. So
I think
yeah, go ahead, Jeremy, please.
I think you touch on a really good point, and I'll try not to belabor it too much, but a lot of those companies that, and I've lived this experience where I'm in boardrooms and board meetings with doctors that are yelling this at us. Why aren't we just like AWS? Why can't we just consume this? Why do we have to buy this? Why are you even here? Why does IT even exist? Why don't we just farm that out? And you look at the comparisons they use. I mean, a lot of these comparisons are companies that are either really IT companies that then deliver a product or service as a result of their IT kind of prowess and know-how, and it's really hard to compete with that. And the other part that I think is even more important is that companies that think IT first definitely will always have a leg up. And when I say IT first, not thinking IT just from the CIO seat and the IT department seat, but thinking of IT from the CEO or the board of directors, or thinking of that first as, how is IT going to deliver this, or what do we need to think about with informatics to help us achieve this goal? And then talking really about tailoring the goal to how the IT delivery can really help, versus the other way around.
Yeah.
And healthcare has been delivering healthcare for a long time without IT. So you're trying to kind of reverse engineer that by throwing IT in at the end. And that's changing though too. We're seeing a lot more people thinking of IT first, because they can't compete without solid IT against their neighbors. And for us on the West Coast, I mean, you look at Kaiser Permanente as the example of delivering really well done IT. And I'm not saying that they're perfect at it and that they don't have problems, because they do, but they are the model that we all on the West Coast try to aspire to be towards. And they think of IT organically as part of their system, not just from the IT department.
Right, I agree. And you're right. We're retrofitting a lot of stuff right now in healthcare, and it's hard. Speaking of which, can you gentlemen give us a few examples of customers that are leveraging the digital experience now and doing well at it?
I can just give you a quick overview of what that looks like for us. There are nearly 1.5 million healthcare workstations and terminals being monitored by NextThink's platform right now, including a large integrated health system on the West Coast. We have Johnson & Johnson, among other notable pharmaceutical manufacturers, large Midwest managed care provider, several state Blue Cross Blue Shields, 2 large Texas health systems, and all of these, among many, many others. But all of them are focused on improving their digital experience and delivering better outcomes by shifting their focus from reactive to more proactive IT by leveraging our intelligence platform.
And I'm sorry, Jeremy, do you want to go ahead?
Yep, I was just going to add to that from the customer side, being in the CTO seat, the systems that I've been a part of and the systems that I had close relationships with colleagues that we would talk and exchange ideas, all of us are creating or have created experienced teams and are looking at how we really can be more a part of the conversations at the root of a new change or a new ask or a new wish, and deliver an experience that's going to be conducive to what they're trying to achieve, whatever product or treatment or care that they're trying to provide is. And that's very common. You'll see that trend across most systems of probably the mid-range to large size. They realize that to be competitive in the market, that's the focus that hasn't been really thought of for 20, 30, 40, 50 years straight. that's very recent. So it's at the tip of the mind of people in healthcare IT to really improve endpoint experience, because at the end of the day, we're delivering a computer with resources. Most of the people aren't in IT. They don't know servers and storage and compute and memory, and they don't care. Like, they don't need to care about that. We need to deliver a tool that works for them, that provides them the ability to be better at their job and to help our patients live better lives. And so experience is at the tip of all that.
Jeremy, when you talk about folks now focusing on experience, where do you see those roles generally residing? Are they in the IT organization?
Yes and no. One of the organizations that I worked for, we hired a physician to be in charge of all of experience. He was the chief experience officer. So the CXO that would sit in the C-suite and work with our strategy office when we look at acquisitions or affiliations in healthcare on the provider system side. And really be there to help speak towards what that experience should be shaped and look like. And IT were seats at the table with that team, led by that physician that we hired into that role. And at some places that was at an AMC, an academic medical center. Some places it may be someone outside from another industry that does experience really well. Maybe they're going to hire someone from the Starbucks or the Disney or the Four Seasons or the whatever, and bring them in and really have them help put some rubber bumpers around what they spend on an experience, but also wrap a package up very nicely and neatly in what it should be able to achieve from their organization's perspective.
And I'll just ask really briefly to follow up on that, Jeremy, what do you think the couple biggest lessons are that are being learned in the process of transforming that?
That's a broad question. I think I'll try to answer it without talking for too long, but I think it starts with the amount of IT we started consuming, the pace we started consuming it at in healthcare in the last 15 to 20 years was never seen in I don't know if in any industry. I mean, from meaningful use, electronic medical record usage, laboratory systems, and all the new stuff that was coming out in various different areas of lab and pathology and DICOM imaging and the ability to digitize all of that. We had PAC systems that kind of led the charge really after the mainframe revenue cycle systems. They wanted to consolidate those all into single systems from really two main vendors that were out there. And the pain that it takes and the toll it takes on an organization to achieve that and not lose money and lose patients is something that's burned or etched into anybody that's been in this industry in the last 20 years for a substantial period of time. And so we consumed all of this stuff and that was digital and that was new and revolutionary and is really going to help us achieve all these things, which in a lot of respects it has. We have data in ways we've never had it before that you couldn't have without trolling through paper-based records and creating spreadsheets, which are very error prone. And not that EMRs and other digital systems aren't prone to error, they can. It's bad data in, bad data out, but we have the ability now to pull data and use it for research or use it for any number of things, maybe even just internal operational efficiencies. Where do we do really well? Where do we do really bad? Where are we spending a lot of our money and effort, but we actually don't generate a lot of revenue? Should we reallocate that somewhere else? And so we had this huge amount of data and digitization that happened at a breakneck pace, and the experience is going to plummet because of that. You're doing so many things at once that you can't make all of them perfect. You're working with the same, a very small group of people, and so the same people are reused over and over again, or maybe at the same time doing 5, 10, 15 different things at once. And you recognize very shortly after that that you're not an IT company doing IT. You're a healthcare organization that needs IT to do things better. And there's a difference that's, again, very stark when you juxtapose IT companies that come out of Silicon Valley that do IT really well. They're born and bred in AWS or Azure or GCP from Google, versus healthcare that's born and bred with paper charts, trying to save people from cancer, trying to do surgeries, trying to deliver medications to manage blood pressure or diabetes. It's a really interesting juxtaposition when you look at those two things. So we delivered as much digital stuff as quick as possible, and whenever you do that, your experience is going to suffer, and it's going to be even more exacerbated when you have a finite group of resources to deliver it, or a finite group of money.
Yeah, I want to ask one really specific question, and then I want to broaden way out as we conclude and have you gentlemen tell us what the future looks like. But in 5 minutes, I know that's totally
Crystal
unfair.
balls and all, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know it's unfair. Can we deliver value to VDI and Citrix deployments?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's especially important in the provider organizations, because so many clinical applications are delivered that way. And that's another operating environment about which we need intelligence to understand how those applications are running in that environment, because that's another way that the experience can be degraded if those environments are not optimal.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you, gentlemen, what do the next few years look like in everything around everything we've just talked about? How quickly will things move? When will the light bulb go on over the collective heads of the masses in healthcare? What is this journey going to be like? Jonathan first.
I mean, it certainly seems to me like the idea of digital experience is rising in prominence among people. As Jeremy said, we're starting to see roles specifically concerned with experience, and of course, we're seeing the adoption of our platform and others that are operating in the same space. And it's all for the same reason. It's because we're starting to recognize that there's a direct connection between the satisfaction of our employees, especially critical employees that touch patients and customers, and the outcomes of the work that they do, the care that they deliver, et cetera, and the impact that that ultimately has on the outcomes of the organization at large.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think my response would be, when anything with human beings in general, put healthcare aside, but applied to our conversation, obviously, when you can show human beings tangible results that are positive, people will change on their own and start doing it. I think cybersecurity is a good example of where cybersecurity kind of was always a part of what we did, and until about 15 years ago, when it really started being exploited. And there probably a 10-year period after that before people really decided to invest money in it from an organizational standpoint, minus banking and other industries that were always way ahead of that, of like, of course we have to protect bank accounts, of course we have to protect national security. Healthcare was very slow in the adoption of that, but once they started seeing tangible results, and those results could be twofold. They could be, hey, we're not getting exploited, which is kind of not realistic. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The best security you can do is still, there's always, humans are the problem, right? We're the problem. We click on something, we do something, we get mad and we sell something to somebody or whatever it is for retribution. Humans are the bad point. IT you can fix, but you've got to see a result. And so one result may be, okay, we're really well protected, we feel great. Or another result may be, there's been a breach, and well, we did everything the right way, we can prove that, so we're not going to be sued $2 billion and then just go out of business or whatever that may be, or be fined by a federal agency for not following something, and there's breach of HIPAA information or something. So I think when you look at experience, it's the same thing. When you can show people tangible results, they gain more time in their day, there's more efficiency, there's happiness in using the tools, which means their culture is going to be happier to some degree. When you can show that there's a tangible result by using something to improve their experience, people will buy into it. And as we've been talking about, that trend is already happening, that people know that the results for experience do dictate certain things. It can dictate a better patient experience or customer experience. At that point, it can dictate being more competitive in the marketplace against your peers, and those things mean things to HIT leadership, and overall health system and or any healthcare organization leadership. When they see that their customers are going to have a better interaction, they're going to gain time with their internal people. It's a tangible result.
Yeah. I agree completely. And I think that the next few years will be pivotal for us in the industry, because so many issues are being worked out right now. I think that the pandemic, I mean, nobody wanted a global pandemic, obviously, and it's been terrible in many ways, but it has signaled to people in the US healthcare industry that the time to move forward in these areas is now. Consumers are becoming more aware, providers, clinicians are becoming more aware of things, and there's no reason to step on the brake. In fact, we should step on the gas and make this happen. Any last quick closing thoughts, Jonathan, and then Jeremy, before we conclude?
So I would say, looking at digital experience for healthcare is a better way at it, looking at employee satisfaction, productivity, and outcomes, all the things that Jeremy was just saying. We make clinicians happier, which leads to healthier communities. We facilitate drug development and supply chain optimization. We can better enable customer support and development of new care solutions. But across the board, we're delivering a better experience for healthcare.
Wonderful. Jeremy?
And I'd just say that delivery of better experience with IT tool sets like NextThink or the other, I think it's a kind of a piece of the puzzle overall experience that healthcare systems and healthcare payers and big organizations are looking at what to plug in, that the future really holds. You have to have a mix of different things that are addressing experience and improving it. That train has already left the station, and you've got to jump on it, and you've got to find which ones you're going to use and what you're going to address. And when you look at endpoints and you look at improving experience from an endpoint standpoint, it's really where it starts. It's where people are starting to consume the resources. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Just seeing the competitiveness in this marketplace ramp up already speaks to that. So when you see other people starting to create things to address the problem that you have, it's not just your problem, and it's not just you thinking about it.
We're all in this together. It takes a village. I'll string out a few more platitudes, but it's true. Thank you both, Jonathan and Jeremy, for a very stimulating conversation. I want to wish you all the best going forward. And this has really been interesting. I know our audience has learned a lot. Thank you very much. This concludes this session, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.